and the quirkier side of life. The Todd Starnes Commentary.
I'm sure most of you spent the weekend locked inside your homes, shades drawn, huddled with your family in fear of the latest terror warning. Over the weekend, the State Department issued a worldwide terror alert. 19 of our embassies remain closed, and President Obama played golf. Republican and Democratic lawmakers tell us this is the most serious threat since before the 9/11 attacks. One member of the House Intelligence Committee tells Fox that agents detected a very specific threat. If that's the case, why is there a worldwide terror alert? Is the entire planet in danger? And what message are we sending to the terrorists by shutting down our embassies? I thought the president told us the war on terror was over, that Al-Qaeda was on the run. But these days, it seems like we're the ones doing the running. I'm Todd Starnes.
Thank you very much, Todd Starnes. Crane Durham's Nothing But Truth, proudly on AFR Talk. Happy Monday. Don't have a case of them. Jumping right into the content as always, and a lot to get to. But we will return to the issue of national security directly with senior fellow from the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and best-selling author David Gartenstein Ross will be with us at the top of the hour. He is not only an intelligence analyst, he is also an attorney. But you can like him anyway because he's going to give us some insight, legally speaking, into the NSA program. And I think that will be appreciated. Even more appreciated will be the question of the terror threat. And is this a reflection of why we need the NSA programs? We'll ask him. Plus, IRS update and on scandals. We do have on Friday Chairman Issa going after Danny Werfel, who is the acting commissioner of the IRS. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important because he's saying what we've all been thinking about slow walking the process. The same frustration that Issa is identifying with the IRS, you could say exists with Benghazi, certainly. Just talked about that with our friend Arnold Allert, and you can check out his article at the Facebook page. Now, let's shift. Paul Ryan, Bob Schieffer. Yes, Face the Nation. Paul Ryan's asked about immigration, and he's asked, hey, doesn't your party need to do something about this? Speaking of the Republicans, don't they need an immigration reform policy? Because it looks like if you're looking at the future demographics of America, your party could become irrelevant. Bob Schieffer and former Veep candidate Paul Ryan. Sunday. Roll it.
Can your party survive as a major political party if you don't come up with some sort of immigration reform? I mean, Lindsey Graham, for one, says you're in a downward demographic death spiral unless you figure out some way to reform immigration. What do you think the Republicans ought to do on this?
Look, I disagree that we should approach this issue based on what's right for us politically. We should approach this issue on what we think is the right thing to do, what's the right policy. In speaking of that, we are not going to take up the Senate bill in the House. It's because we don't support the Senate bill. We've been listening to the American people. So what we're going to do is take a step-by-step approach to get immigration right. Not a big, massive bill, but separate bills so people know what's in these bills. Number one, Bob, and just look at this terror threat we have. We don't have control of our border. We don't know who's coming and going in this country. We need real border enforcement. And that means we really don't trust the administration with discretion in this area. So we need a border enforcement law, first and foremost, that cannot be avoided. We need interior enforcement, and we need to fix our legal immigration system.
It's interesting because we've gone over the numbers of the election, and the targeted Hispanic vote would not have won it for Mitt Romney. Nonetheless, you do have to solve problems, not about R's or D's, about accountability. And Paul Ryan is saying just that. I want to solve the problem. Now, you may agree or disagree, and we're going to hear parts of the policy that he's going to put forth in more detail in just a moment. But the idea that somehow there's a death spiral because we're not, as a party, and I'm talking about the Republicans are not embracing the maverick and the reasonable Lindsey Graham. Let's get the narrative here. This is what I'm going to do. Break down the narrative for you. Crane Durham, breaking down the narrative. Here it is. It is always sensible to abandon conservative principles. No matter how many times you've said it in the past, no matter how many times America has said no, even when the question is belied, or the question's presumption or assumptions are belied by the results of where America is on the issue, they still go ahead with the narrative. You need to do this or you're done. And the reason is because this would be the death of the conservative movement, or certainly a big step to that in America. And that means that you, in essence, plug in, which we have to deal with the result, a welfare state that grows. And when you have more people in this country who are uneducated and relying on state and federal programs, that's the growth of the welfare state, okay? So the idea is, why don't you guys do something and just look? I mean, Lindsey Graham says this, Maverick, John McCain's on board, even Marco Rubio, though not invoked right there. And Ryan's saying, wait, well, beep, 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 back it up. We can take this and we can address it, but we can do it piece by piece, because what he said about the border is backed up just this weekend from Governor Jan Brewer, who is saying, look, we don't know who's getting across. We don't know who's there. We do know we've got a big-time problem with drug cartels and the narco civil war that's taking place in Mexico. That'd be south of the border. So the idea is always, if you don't do something, you're finished, okay? That's what Ryan's addressing and how he's doing it. Okay, part two, roll it.
And when it comes to the undocumented, to people who came here illegally, we want to give people a chance to get right with the law while respecting the rule of law, and that means not doing an amnesty. So we've got specific ideas that we're looking at on how to get people to come and get right with the law. That means go on probation. You have to do certain terms of probation, and it's a one-strike policy if you don't meet the conditions of your probation. Pay fines, pay back taxes, get a background check, learn English, learn civics, and then make sure that we independently verify we've actually secured the border. We have our interior enforcement provisions like E-Verify and a visa tracking system in place. Then and only then can that person get a legal work permit. No special pathway. And if a person in this situation wants to get in line to get a green card, they can get in the line like any other immigrant, only at the back of the line. Because we want to be fair to that legal immigrant who did everything right in the first place. We think that's the right way to go. That's the opposite of amnesty. And more importantly, Bob, this kind of step-by-step approach, I think, will better guarantee that we're not in the same mess 10 years from now, which is exactly what happened the last two times we did immigration reform.
So he's citing history. He's saying piece by piece, do it, because what you've done in the past is it's yielded far more people coming in than anticipated and has not solved the problem because it has incentivized people coming over. Now, the idea that verification, very important in the DREAM Act, and highlighting the point I was just making about how the left tries to advance an agenda knowing they have to do it with a false narrative. Remember, the DREAM Act didn't pass, and they tried it in 2010, tried it in 2011. And in 2011, the president spoke specifically to it and was speaking to a group of immigration activists, and here is what he had to say about the rule of law and the process and Article 1 powers of Congress. Roll it.
This notion that somehow I can just change the laws unilaterally is just not true. We are doing everything we can administratively. But the fact of the matter is there are laws on the books that I have to enforce. And I think that there's been a great disservice done to the cause of getting the DREAM Act passed and getting comprehensive immigration passed by perpetrating the notion that somehow by myself I can go and do these things. It's just not true. Now, what we can do is to prioritize enforcement, since there are limited enforcement resources, and say, we're not going to go chasing after this young man or anybody else who's been acting responsibly and would otherwise qualify for legal status if the DREAM Act passed. But we live in a democracy. You have to pass bills through the legislature, and then I can sign it.
So what did he do in 2012? Roll it.
Effective immediately, the Department of Homeland Security is taking steps to lift the shadow of deportation from these young people. Over the next few months, eligible individuals who do not present a risk to national security or public safety will be able to request temporary relief from deportation proceedings and apply for work authorization. Now, let's be clear, this is not amnesty. This is not immunity. This is not a path to citizenship. It's not a permanent fix. This is a temporary stopgap measure that lets us focus our resources wisely while giving a degree of relief and hope to talented, driven, patriotic young people. It is the right thing to do.
Remember that Neil Monroe was the Daily Caller reporter who was interrupting because he wanted to get a question in an announcement. Bottom line is this. 1 year he says he can't do it. Next year he does it. We've had recess appointments that were not made when Congress was in recess. There is much more. It deals with the rule of law. So what has been set up here is if we don't do it legislatively and we can't convince you we're going to do it through executive order, Crane Durham's nothing but truth. That's created a trust deficit, to say the least. AFR Talk.